Pete Hegseth's leadership is also in question with the release of a report from the Pentagon regarding the Signalgate controversy. That's when Mr. Hegseth discussed sensitive military information on that messaging app, accidentally including a reporter. Now here's your headline. The Pentagon's own internal watchdog says Hegseth could have endangered American service members. The journalist on that chat, Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic. In a post on X, though, Hegseth digs in his heels, writing, "No classified information, total exoneration, case closed. Houthis bombed into submission. Thank you for your attention to this IG report." So let's go live to CBS News senior national security correspondent Charlie D'Agata. Charlie, Hegseth says no classified information, total exoneration, but I guess that begs the question, is that widely seen as case closed?
No, Reed. I think it comes down to interpretation. So I don't think there was anything in this report that was particularly damning to the defense secretary. As he said, he's the sort of keeper of the information. He decides how that information will be disseminated if he's decided that it is unclassified. However, it hasn't showered him with glory. The watchdog concluded if this information had fallen into the hands of U.S. adversaries, Houthi forces might have been able to counter U.S. forces or reposition personnel and assets to avoid planned U.S. strikes. It further goes on to say that while the secretary does have the authorization to declassify information like that, he shared it on a non-public operational information system over Signal in using his personal cell phone. And that is strictly forbidden under DOD rules. So the Inspector General's report has found that he's certainly culpable of sharing information in a way, in an unsecured line, Signal chat. Obviously, as you said, it fell into the hands of a journalist, and we should be grateful that it was only that benign. But the fact that he used his personal cell phone to transmit that information, and the fact that he's kind of doing it in real time as F-18 fighter jets were taking off the deck of the Truman and bombing Houthi targets, if that had fallen into the hands of more capable adversaries, that would have been dangerous. And I think that's what the report goes down to. So you'll have the Inspector General saying he should not have done what he did. The Secretary himself saying, I decide what's classified. And if I want to send that out to what he thought, anyway, was a closed group, he certainly has the authorization to do that, in his opinion.
All right, so let's drill down. You know, that Pentagon report, Charlie, also brings that other headline that the Inspector General is aware of several other Signal chats that Hegseth used for other official business. What do you know there?
Well, we already know that Secretary Hegseth is no fan of the Inspector General anyway. And, you know, the idea of a Pentagon watchdog kind of goes against how this particular Secretary of Defense wants to run the Pentagon and the DOD. So he wasn't very cooperative. He didn't sit down for interviews, for instance, and he also didn't hand over his device or even some of the messages. Now, a lot of those messages, as you may be aware, they disappear on that Signal app. You can tell it to set it so that it's 48 hours, whatever it may be. So it may be that he didn't have them anyway, but it meant that the Inspector General had to go to the Atlantic, which had chapter and verse of everything that was held in that chat, including the information, sensitive information, even as the Inspector General calls it, that he distributed. And then he was also accused of sending Signal chats to people like his wife and his brother-in-law, and that's what the Inspector General wanted to see more of. And because they don't have the evidence either way, it's sort of suggesting that this wasn't just a one or two off time that he had done this. They ultimately want to make sure it's not done anymore, but they'd also like to know how much more he had done it.
Charlie D'Agata, thank you so much.